Before we start the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell button so you can get all the new content from us. The movie begins with Colt Seavers, who works as a stuntman. If you're not familiar with stuntmen, they're the people who perform dangerous scenes in movies and TV shows. Colt absolutely loved his job because he was not only great at it, but also considered the best in the business. Plus, his fiancée, Jody, worked with him as a cinematographer, which made Colt love his job even more. One day, Colt was working on a film for a star named Tom Ryder. Tom and his producer, Jill, invited Colt to reshoot a dangerous scene. The scene involved Colt being tied to a rope and falling from a great height. Colt went ahead with the stunt, but unfortunately the rope came loose and Colt fell. He was immediately rushed to the hospital and his career as a stuntman ended. 18 months pass, and we learn that after the accident, Colt decided to retire from stunt work for good. After the accident, Colt disappeared from everyone's lives and now lives alone in a small apartment, working as a valet at a restaurant. We also learn that Colt has completely distanced himself from Jody without any explanation, and since then, he's been living in sadness, boredom, and isolation. One day, Colt receives a call from the movie producer, Jill. She asks him to come back and do stunts for a new movie she's producing for Tom Ryder. Colt, of course, refuses, but Jill cleverly informs him that the director of this movie is none other than Jody, and it's her first film as a director. She specifically requested Colt for this role. Without hesitation, Colt agrees to take the job and return to stunt work. The next day, we see Colt arriving on set, where he's greeted by Dan Tucker, the stunt coordinator. After the introductions, Dan shows Colt the stunt he'll be performing: a dangerous car flip, followed by the car rolling down a hill. Despite the risks, Colt agrees to do the stunt, mainly because of Jody. He keeps asking Dan whether Jody had asked about him or showed any interest in his return, but Dan tells him that Jody didn't mention him or care that he was back on set. This, of course, leaves Colt surprised and a bit puzzled. He let it go for the moment. Meanwhile, Jody was with her team planning the car stunt. She had no idea that Colt was the one doing the dangerous scene. Jill had lied to get him back to work. Jody got into a car to follow the stunt car for the shoot, unaware that Colt was driving. The scene began, and even as the cameras rolled, Jody still didn't know it was Colt behind the wheel, performing the risky stunt. Colt's car flips and rolls, but despite the difficulty, he pulls off the stunt and exits the car unharmed. Everyone cheers, thrilled with how perfectly the scene turned out. Jody spots him and is shocked she's still hurt that Colt cut her off. She tells him she doesn't want him on the film anymore and asks him to leave. However, her assistant Nigel points out there's no other stuntman available, so Colt has to finish the scenes. Reluctantly, Jody agrees and Colt gears up to shoot the next dangerous stunt scene. The next scene takes place on a battlefield, where Colt's character is set on fire and violently slammed into a rock. Colt shoots the scene multiple times, and it's physically exhausting. But Jody keeps pushing for more takes, clearly trying to get under his skin. Despite the difficulty, Colt finishes the scene successfully. Later that day, Colt meets with Jill. He angrily confronts her for lying about Jody, but Jill brushes it off and focuses on an urgent matter. She asks Colt to help find Tom Ryder, the lead actor, who has mysteriously gone missing, and no one knows where he is. Jill explains to Colt that she can't call the police because if they get involved, they'll find out she went over the budget, which is illegal, and the movie would be shut down. So Colt has to find Tom himself, without the authorities. Jill also informs him that he has exactly 48 hours to locate Tom before the entire crew realizes he's missing, which would halt the production entirely. Colt agrees to help her, not wanting Jody's first film as a director to fail. He takes a car from the set to search for Tom, but before leaving, Colt sits in the car, listening to music, and starts thinking about his past relationship with Jody, back when everything was stable and normal. While he's sitting there, Jody shows up and sits with him. She tells Colt that they should continue working together on the film, but suggests they completely forget about their past relationship and just be professional. Colt, still emotional, confesses that he still loves her and explains that the time he distanced himself was because he didn't want her to see him as a failure. Jody understands his feelings, and it seems like they're starting to reconnect. Colt then leaves Jody and heads to Tom's house to search for him. He searches everywhere but can't find him. Suddenly, a woman attacks Colt with a sword, but he manages to dodge her strikes and disarm her. After focusing on the woman, he realizes it's Angie, an actress and Tom's fiancée. She thought Colt was a burglar, but he brushes it off and asks her about Tom's whereabouts. Angie doesn't know exactly where Tom is, but she mentions that he often hangs out at a casino owned by a guy named Don, a drug dealer who Tom buys from. Without wasting any time, Colt heads straight for the casino, where Don offers him a drink. As Colt starts drinking, he asks Don about Tom's whereabouts, but Don claims not to know. Suddenly, Colt starts feeling strange and realizes the drink was spiked with hallucinogens. Don reveals he's been ordered to kidnap Colt, and just then his men arrive to take him. However, Colt fights them off one by one, and when he sees Don trying to escape, he chases after him. Colt catches up and stops Don's car, ready to attack him, but Don confesses that it wasn't his idea, it was Tom's security chief who gave the order. He also tells Colt that Tom is staying at a hotel, the same one where Jody and the film crew are staying. With this new information, Colt heads to the hotel. At the front desk, Colt asks the receptionist about Tom's room but struggles to focus due to the hallucinogens, causing him to imagine a rhinoceros wandering around. As Colt tries to keep it together, Jody spots him and approaches, nearly ruining everything by asking about Tom. But fortunately, Jill arrives and pulls Jody away just in time. Colt then convinces the receptionist to give him Tom's room key. He sneaks into the room and starts searching for Tom. While Colt is searching the room, Jody calls him to ask for his opinion on some scenes and other details for the film. Colt gives her advice on what to do and what to avoid, and they share a pleasant conversation. After hanging up, Colt resumes his search for Tom. Suddenly, he stumbles upon a bathtub filled with ice and a body inside. Horrified, Colt panics and immediately runs out of the room. Panicking, Colt rushes out and calls Jill, telling her what he saw and insisting on calling the police. Jill refuses, but Colt doesn't listen and calls them anyway. The police check the room but find nothing, leading Colt to realize the hallucinations must have caused him to imagine the body. Later, Colt heads to the film set, still shaken but determined to move forward. Jody approaches him to discuss the scene they're shooting, explaining the action and inviting him to a crew hangout later. Colt agrees. When it's time to film, Colt pulls off an incredible performance, impressing everyone. Just as he's about to take a break and join the crew for their evening out, Jill approaches him again, this time with urgent news. She tells Colt that he needs to board a plane immediately to another city to continue the search for Tom, as there's a lead that Tom might be there. But just as he's about to leave, he notices Alma, Tom's assistant, in the distance. Colt approaches her, hoping for answers. Alma doesn't know where Tom is, but she hands Colt Tom's phone, hoping it might contain some clues to help Colt track him down. Suddenly someone shows up, electrocutes both him and Alma, and demands Tom's phone. Colt quickly recovers and chases the car. He leaps onto it, fighting the men inside, and manages to rescue Alma. Afterward, Colt heads to where Jody and the crew are supposed to be, only to find out Jody already left. Frustrated, Colt goes to his friend Dan and asks if he knows the password to Tom's phone. Dan doesn't, but suggests they check his house, as Dan tends to write down important things on notes and stick them around his place. Colt and Dan head to Dan's house, where they begin a thorough search, checking every note Dan has stuck around the place. After searching through piles of papers and scribbled notes, they finally find the password hidden on one of the notes. Colt immediately uses it to unlock Tom's phone, anxiously scrolling through the files. They come across a video that shows Tom and his stunt double, Henry, at a party. At first, the video seems lighthearted, with Tom playfully teasing Henry, but as the video continues, things take a darker turn. Tom's joking escalates into aggression, and suddenly, in a fit of rage, Tom strikes Henry with enough force to kill him. Shocked, Colt watches as the realization sinks in Tom murdered Henry, and the video on this phone is the only evidence of the crime. This is why Tom has been so desperate to get the phone back. Before Colt can process everything, the news breaks that Henry's body has been found, and authorities believe Colt is the murderer since he was the last person in Henry's room. Shocked, Colt is quickly confronted by Tom's men, and a fight breaks out. Colt and Dan bravely fight back and escape, but not for long. They are soon captured, and Tom himself shows up to gloat. Tom, feeling victorious, confronts Colt and begins to unravel the truth behind everything. Tom confesses to Colt that he was behind the accident that ended Colt's career, all because he felt Colt was stealing his spotlight. Tom admits he killed Henry for the same reason and reveals that producer Jill is helping cover it all up as she benefits from Tom's success. Jill has a vested interest in Tom's success, as his films make her a lot of money, so she's willing to do whatever it takes to protect him. They even concocted a plan to frame Colt by digitally editing the video, making it look like he was the one who killed Henry. Tom demands Colt hand over the phone with the incriminating video, but Colt refuses. Furious, Tom orders his men to kill Colt. They douse Colt in gasoline, preparing to set him on fire. But Colt, always resourceful, manages to fight back. In the chaos, he escapes, grabbing a nearby boat and fleeing into the sea, barely making it out alive. As he escapes, Colt feels it might be the end, so he calls Jody and confesses his love. Meanwhile, Tom's men pursue Colt in a boat, shooting at him. Colt's boat catches fire, but in a bold move, he steers it into a nearby ship, causing a massive explosion. Everyone assumes Colt is dead, but he jumps from the boat just in time. The next day, Jody is on set when a mysterious figure approaches. She immediately attacks him, only to realize it's Colt. Overjoyed to see him alive, she apologizes and listens as Colt explains everything. They come up with a plan to force Tom to confess and clear Colt's name. They decide to do it while filming the final scene of the movie. Later, Tom arrives on set to shoot a dangerous car stunt. Jody casually suggests that he should do it himself, reassuring him that it would be more impressive. After some thought, Tom agrees. As soon as he gets into the car, ready to start the scene, things begin to take an unexpected turn. Colt appears next to him, hijacking the vehicle. Colt speeds off, threatening to crash unless Tom confesses. Tom resists at first, but as Colt drives more recklessly, Tom panics and admits everything. Unbeknownst to Tom, he's wearing a hidden mic, and Jody records the entire confession. Just when things seem resolved, Jill tries to escape with the recording, taking Tom with her. They board a plane, but Colt manages to grab onto the plane just before takeoff. Aboard, he fights both Jill and Tom, retrieves the recording, and makes a daring jump from the plane before it takes off. In the end, Tom and Jill are arrested. Jody finishes her movie with a new actor and fulfills her dream, while she and Colt finally rekindle their relationship, promising never to leave each other again. The film ends on this happy note, and that's the story. Hope you enjoyed it.